guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Tanya, and today I'm going to do a reaction video for you. This video was not a suggestion this time. I decided to go back to the channel called Living Simply Australia, which is somebody who I have reacted to before. I just haven't reacted to her in a while. So I wanted to check out some of her newer videos and see what she has been posting lately. I haven't been keeping up with it. This video is actually 2 months old, but it looks very interesting to me because it's called The 18 Biggest Mistakes Tourists Keep Making in Australia. Avoid doing this. And one day I hope to be a tourist in Australia, and I would like to know what I should avoid doing. So I need this video to help me out. So let's go ahead and get started on it. It's a 12.5-minute long video. But I wanted to remind everybody really quick that if you are at all interested, I do have a Discord where a lot of people do give me reaction suggestions in there, and that is like the first place I go to look for suggestions is my Discord, and it's completely free. You don't have to pay anything at all. I don't get paid for doing it. I do it, you know, for fun, you know, but also to, you know, talk to my viewers and everything and make friends. So it's linked below if you're interested at all in joining. I recommend joining though, because it's like a load of fun. We have so much fun in there. And then also I do, if you're interested at all, have a wish list account. It's also linked below if you want to purchase me a gift or whatever. A lot of people have asked me why I don't have a PO box. And the reason I don't have a PO box is because in the United States, a PO box is very, very expensive. And I just can't afford that monthly bill or that every 6-month bill or that yearly bill, whatever, however they do it, but it's expensive. So that's why I don't have one. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get into this video. Here we go.
If it's your first time coming to Australia, whether it is to visit or to live here, and are feeling excited but at the same time a bit nervous about your trip, don't worry, because in this video we're going to talk about common mistakes people make during their trip to Australia, so you don't make them yourself and you have the best trip of your lifetime. So if you're interested, keep watching.
Actually, I'm going to rewind this for a second because here it is. So you guys have some Australian flags hanging up here in this little, is this like a market or like a place with shops or something? And obviously everyone has flags and they fly their flags or whatever, but I do know that other countries don't fly their flags as often as America. So I always really love when I see people flying their own country's flags in their country, you know, just because I know that people in other places don't really, like I said, do it as much as Americans do. Some people say Americans do it too much, but that's a whole different discussion. Anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Common mistakes people make during their trip to Australia, so you don't make them yourself and you have the best trip of your lifetime. So if you're interested, keep watching. One of the biggest mistakes people make when they come to Australia is that they only visit Sydney. And while this is a beautiful city and a must-see destination for sure, the reality is that there's much more to Australia than Sydney. From the natural beauty of the Great Barrier Reef, Uluru and parts of Western Australia, to the cultural experiences of Melbourne and Tasmania. So if you're coming all the way to Australia and you've allocated enough time for your trip, I highly recommend considering taking advantage of budget airlines or road trips to explore different cities and regions. This way you'll gain a deeper appreciation of this beautiful country.
I agree with what she says here, because it's like that here in the States too. People go to New York and California and Florida and Texas. Like those are the big places that people go. And then if they come into the middle of the country at all, it's usually just to Chicago. And if you want to come experience Illinois, maybe go to other places in Illinois besides just the city of Chicago. Kind of like she's saying, don't just go to Sydney. Go to other places too, which I personally, if I'm going all the way to Australia, yeah, I am going to visit as many places as I possibly can, because I don't want to just go to Sydney or just go to one place. You know, I want to go see lots of places. I would love to go to Southern Australia. I would love to go to Perth. I would love to go to Melbourne and see like all the character in that city. Like there's so many places that I would love to explore in Australia. So I would never just come for Sydney personally.
Now, having said that, having unrealistic itineraries and not allocating enough days to explore is another mistake many people make when coming to Australia, because they don't realize that this is a huge country and that distances between cities can be very long. So I highly recommend prioritizing your must-see destinations and activities to make sure you have plenty of time to fully experience each place, and allocating a minimum of 2 weeks for your trip. Shorter than that and you'll barely have time to recover from jet lag. Another pretty big mistake many people make when coming to Australia for a visit or to live here is that they drive without the proper documentation. If you're planning to drive here in Australia, you must bring your overseas driver's license, which should be in English, because if you don't have a valid license or if it's not translated into English, you can get in a lot of trouble, legal trouble. And this is also a requirement if you want to hire a car. So make sure you have your driver's license ready for your trip. And also remember that here in Australia, we drive on the left side of the road. This is super important.
I would not drive in Australia for that reason alone, because I would be so afraid of just getting so confused in the middle of it, because I've never done that before. I have never ever been in a place where you drive on the opposite side of the road. So for that reason alone, I would not personally drive in Australia. I would take an Uber or a train or something, but I wouldn't personally drive.
To know and keep in mind, and I've mentioned it in other videos, but the reality is that accidents do happen. So please remember this. Another big mistake that I see many international visitors make, and you're going to be surprised by this one, is that they don't declare items in Australian border security. And this is a massive mistake. So much so that Australia actually has a TV show / documentary called Border Security, where they investigate people coming into the country and the things that they're bringing in. So let me explain very quickly. Basically, when you enter Australia, arrived at the airport, you're going to have to fill in a form where you declare the items that you're bringing in your bag. And these are items that are restricted or prohibited by Australian border security regulations. For example, certain foods, plants, animal products, medications, firearms, or even proof of certain vaccines, depending on where you're coming from. And if you fail to declare these items and they grab your bag and they find them, you can get in a lot of legal trouble. So my best advice is to get familiar with Australian customs regulations before your travel to avoid any issues once you're here.
Yeah, I would definitely have to do that for sure. I haven't been on a plane since pre 9/11. So it's been a very long time for me since I have flown. So I don't know any of the rules, you know. I know that like America is like that too, though. Like they don't allow certain foods or certain things to come into the country. I imagine a lot of places are like that. But I would definitely have to learn all the rules about that.
Another mistake some international visitors make is not observing basic social etiquette in public spaces. For example, when you are at the train station or at the shopping center, here we stand on the left side of the escalator to allow others to pass, not on the right or the middle. And this is pretty important to not disturb those who are in a hurry or going to and from work. Another basic social rule is that we also wait for people to exit.
Okay, so the escalator thing, I don't think is a rule or anything here. I've never heard this before. So that is something interesting, because I would not have known that. We just kind of stand wherever on those things and just let it take us up. There's no like etiquette with it. So that is new to me. I'm glad I learned that. I'll probably forget though.
Before entering trains or trams, we don't push our way in.
And please refrain
from rewinding. Another basic social rule is that we also wait for people to exit before entering trains or trams. We don't push our way in. And please refrain from putting your feet on public transport seats, because there are very hefty fines for doing.
About the going in, that seems like common sense to me. And then I have heard this rule about putting your feet on the seats before. And I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. Because that's, you know, you don't like, it's not, people don't want their feet on the seats, but you don't get fined for putting your feet on the seats, you know?
So they can go over 200 Australian dollars. And I've mentioned this in many other videos, but it's very important to stress because I've seen it happening. People are tired after a long day of walking and they put their feet, and then the inspector comes in and you get a fine. So be sure to watch that. Now, probably many of you are watching this and thinking that all these things are common sense and basic good manners, but the reality is that we all come from different cultures, backgrounds, so it is not the same in all countries. Another mistake many tourists make when they come to Australia, especially for a visit, is that they leave a tip for absolutely everything. And the reality is that here in Australia, we don't have a tipping culture. This is because hospitality workers here receive a living wage, so tipping is considered optional and is generally only done if you think that you've received exceptional service. But again, this is a discretionary practice, not mandatory. It's up to you.
Aww.
Now, the next mistake many people make when they come to Australia is disturbing wildlife, such as attempting to touch or feed kangaroos or other wild animals. This is a huge mistake and something that you shouldn't be doing because it can be dangerous for both the animal and yourself. Wild animals can actually become very aggressive when you get too close, and feeding them can also disrupt their natural behaviors and diet. So my best advice is to admire them from a safe distance and refrain from attempting to interact with them. Now, having said that, many people coming to Australia for the first time, they go a bit overboard with the worry about encountering dangerous animals, to the point where they don't really get to enjoy their trip, which in my opinion is completely unrealistic and a massive mistake. While it is true that Australia is home to very unique and potentially dangerous wildlife, such as snakes and spiders, most animals here pose no threat to humans unless you disturb them, as we said before. And another thing that many tourists don't know, especially those who worry so much, is that you actually have to go out of your way to see wildlife here. You have to go to more rural areas or even animal sanctuaries. So my best advice to overcome your fear is to educate yourself on local wildlife here in Australia.
Yeah, I've said this in many other videos before, but I always think it's so funny when people say they're afraid to go to Australia just because of the animals, especially when Americans say it, because America has the most deadliest animals, you know? I mean, like, not the most deadly. I mean, we're not Africa. We don't have like lions running around, but we have cougars running around, bears running around, crocodiles in southern Florida, alligators, we have all these other sharks, snakes, whatever. We have all these dangerous animals here in America. So whenever I hear an American say they're afraid to go to Australia, what is wrong with you guys? Like, no. It's way more dangerous in America with the animals, for sure. So it's so funny to me when people say that they're afraid to go out to Australia. Like, I can understand people who, they're planning on going to Queensland, for instance, and like they're deathly afraid of alligators or something. Yeah, that would be a worry, I guess. You know, I don't particularly like alligators or crocodiles, and I would not want to see crocodiles if I was in Queensland. But I would imagine people on a day-to-day basis aren't running into crocodiles, you know. So anyway, I just think it's really funny. The only time I understand when people are afraid is when people live in a country where there's not really any dangerous animals at all. So they're just not used to it. So like England, for instance, they don't have like dangerous animals. So there are a lot of people from England who are afraid to come to the States because of our dangerous animals. And I'm sure they feel the same about Australia. I can also understand people who are like maybe deathly afraid of like spiders, and coming across a big huntsman would freak you out. I'm not deathly afraid of spiders, but I do know that if I saw a huntsman for the first time in real life, it would creep me out, you know, just would. But yeah, I'm not afraid to go to Australia because of the animals. I think that's so laughable.
And take common sense precautions to help alleviate any unnecessary fears that you may have. Now, the next mistake on our list is swimming on beaches during periods where it's prohibited or swimming outside designated areas. I'm not sure if you know, but many beaches here in Australia experience strong currents, rips, or the presence of jellyfish in the water, especially during certain times of the year. So ignoring warning signs and swimming in prohibited areas can cause you serious injury or even death. And tourist drownings, believe it or not, are actually a thing here. So I highly recommend getting in the water only if you know how to swim and only in designated areas. And please follow safety instructions and warning signs when you are at the beach, etc.
That should be common sense, in my opinion. Read signs.
Another unfortunate mistake many tourists and visitors make, and I've seen it firsthand, and that's why I'm talking about it, is that they go hiking or they go camping, they go to a park, they have a picnic, and they don't take the trash. They litter the whole place. If you go camping or hiking here in Australia, especially in Australian national parks, you'll likely see that rubbish bins are not readily available. And this is because there's an expectation that you'll take your waste with you, that you're not going to leave it behind. The fact that there are no rubbish bins doesn't mean that you can leave all your waste behind and litter the whole place for someone else to clean. Conservation and looking after our environment is super important here in Australia. And again, I know this sounds like common sense, but unfortunately it does happen. I've seen it firsthand. So please don't do so because it's disrespectful and we won't have any issues in telling you off.
Good.
Now, another massive mistake tourists make when they come to Australia is that they don't wear sun protection. And sometimes you see people there at the beach, especially tourists, roasting like chickens, sunbathing. And in many instances, perhaps you're not wearing sunscreen because you see them then get up and they're completely sunburned. And the issue is that many people don't realize that Australia's sun is very, very harsh. It's super spicy. We have very high radiation levels. So not applying sunscreen and not wearing a hat when you're here can actually lead to painful sunburns and increase the risk of skin cancer. So my best advice is to use sunscreen with a high SPF and reapply it regularly and wear a hat and sunglasses, especially if you're going to be spending time outdoors. Another pretty common mistake amongst those coming to Australia for the first time is that they don't bring warm clothing because they think that it's always hot. And it is true that Australia is well known for its warm climate, but the reality is that temperatures in this country can vary a lot depending on the region and time of the year. For example, if you're coming to the southern regions, such as Melbourne or Tasmania, here we have much cooler temperatures than in the north, to the point that during the winter months, it actually snows in some parts of Victoria or Tassie. And even if you're going to Sydney, especially during the winter months, I highly recommend bringing warm clothes. Now, I know many tourists who actually come to Australia and they leave the country without having gone to a foodie match. Or in some instances, they don't even know what foodie is. And in my personal opinion, this is a mistake because this is a huge part of the Australian culture and it's a very unique sport to Australia. So if you have enough time and you want to do something beyond the typical tourist activities, I highly recommend going to a foodie match. It's an amazing experience to immerse yourself a bit more in the local culture.
I personally probably would not go to one of those, and that's just because I don't even attend that stuff in my own country. I'm just not interested in sports.
Another mistake many people make when coming to Australia is that they overlook Australia's Indigenous culture. And if you didn't know, this country has a very rich Indigenous heritage, dating back tens of thousands of years, including Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and traditions. So if you really want to learn about Australia, I highly recommend taking the time to get familiar with Australia's Indigenous history, arts, and perspectives. There are many Aboriginal guided tours in major cities, so you could definitely check that out.
That's really cool. I love that. I didn't know they did that. So she said most of the major cities do that?
Now, something that many people coming to Australia don't know is that Australia is a super multicultural nation, which is reflected in its diverse culinary scene, from fresh seafood and the popular Australian barbecue and meat pies to multicultural dishes influenced by Asian, European, and Indigenous cultures. So once you're here, instead of limiting yourself to eating what you usually eat at home, I encourage you to get out of your comfort zone and go and explore and try all the different foods from different countries that Australia has to offer. You'll find lots of amazing flavors and very, very high quality ingredients.
Oh,
Now, speaking of the Australian food scene, another big mistake many international visitors make when they come to Australia is that they get their coffees from places like Starbucks, which they're all right, but the issue is that you can get that coffee anywhere in the world. And they don't go to authentic Australian cafes. Because if you didn't know, Australia is actually renowned for its high-quality coffee culture. So next time you come for a visit, don't forget to try the amazing Australian coffee. My favorites are the flat white and mocha. Another mistake is not knowing restaurants' opening hours. If you're from countries like Spain, Italy, or South American countries, it's very likely that you're used to eating very late at night, between 8:30 to 11 p.m. Well, this is not the case in Australia. So don't make the mistake of expecting that restaurants will be open at 10 p.m. for you to eat, because it's very likely they won't. Most restaurants here in Australia open at 5:30, 6 p.m. and the kitchen closes between 8 and 9 p.m. maximum. We have early dinner.
Oh, really? That's the hours of a restaurant? Like, but what about restaurants that serve lunch? Like, are they open all day then? That's interesting. I would say most of our restaurants are kind of like a 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. sort of thing. Most of our restaurants. I mean, they're all different, but like, on average, that's kind of how it is.
Here, so make sure you consider this when you're making your plans for eating out.
Look at that.
Another thing that many tourists and international visitors are not aware of is that Australia's major cities, particularly Melbourne, are home to a growing rooftop bar scene, offering stunning views of the city and the beach, delicious cocktails, and a super lively atmosphere. So don't make the mistake of not going to a rooftop bar when you're here.
Ooh,
it's a nice activity to do in the evening, and you'll get to feel a bit more like a local. Now, if you want to know more about what it's like to live, work, study, and travel here in Australia, I highly recommend watching these videos here and here. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe to keep supporting the channel so I can keep bringing more content for you. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.
I actually learned some stuff in this video that I had never heard before. There's some things in this video that I already knew definitely, but yeah, there's some new things in this video that that I definitely did not know. So I'll have to definitely continue refreshing myself on some of these things, like especially like if I do get a plan to go to Australia for the first time, I'll have to get like a list of all these like do's and don'ts so that I can do things right or whatever. The rooftop bar thing looks really, really cool. I would definitely do that. We have like bars that are kind of like that here, but they're just small bars. They're not like high rises. There's no like great view. It's kind of on the roof. It's nothing major. That looked very cool though. I've said in videos before, I'm not really like a big coffee person. I'm more of a Diet Coke kind of person. I don't drink coffee all that often. And if I wanted a coffee in Australia, I definitely would not go to Starbucks, because I don't go to Starbucks here either. It's really gross. So, but I would definitely try a local coffee shop while I'm there and try one or two different coffees just to see like what the difference is. But I would definitely do that. But sorry to all the sports fanatics, I will not be attending any sports games if I go, because I'm just not a sport person, really. I'm just not into it. Yeah, but anyway, this was a really cool video. I really enjoy reacting to Living Simply Australia. I don't know why I haven't reacted to her in so long, but I think I need to get back into it, because she has posted lots of really great videos lately, and there's there's a few that I really want to see. So I hope you guys enjoyed this reaction. If you did, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't done that yet, and I'll see you next time.